Welcome everybody to Theory Underground. This segment is from an epic marathon live stream at Theory Underground. These are something that happens every 1 to 3 months at Theory Underground. It's where I have a whole bunch of different guests who are significant figures in the theory scene today on for a conversation about something related to the subject matters that are most relevant to the kind of research going on at Theory Underground. If you're never ever able to follow along for one of these entire live streams, don't worry about it because I always post the segments like this one after the fact. But also, if you are the kind of worker who works all day long and is interested in long form content, then these streams really might be for you. That's the kind of person I have in mind when making this content, right? Because I work at Amazon, I'm listening to stuff. I like to listen to long form theory related content. Not everybody is able to keep up with such stuff though, which is why I post these as standalone videos. I guess the last thing I want to say before turning it over though is if you like this kind of content, if you're interested in the kinds of guests that I'm bringing on, the kind of research going on at Theory Underground, or if you're interested in any of the lecture courses, then you're going to want to like, comment, and subscribe. Liking, commenting, and subscribing is how you train the algorithm to feed you something a little bit better than what might be the default diet it is feeding you. If you were liking and commenting and subscribing a lot back in the day, and nowadays you don't do it as often, chances are the algorithms have not adapted to your new tastes, your evolved palate. And so yes, if you are into theory, if you are into philosophy, if you think we don't know what's going on today, if you don't really see hope in anything that is currently on offer, then Theory Underground is ground zero for the kind of research, questions, and concepts, thinkers, texts necessary for getting to the bottom of what we are actually dealing with today. So yes, Theory Underground is all about trying to figure out the situation. And these guests from our epic marathon live streams are part of that puzzle. So like, comment, subscribe. Check out the Patreon. Thank you. Enjoy this interview. Welcome, Michał. And do you say, okay, I understand that it's like Michał, like the L in Polish is like a H sort of in English. So that would be like
Wu-Tang.
Wu-Tang. So it'd be like Łukasz. It would be how I would say. You said it's okay to say Lucas, but it would be Łukasz, right?
It would be Łukasz.
Okay, wonderful. Great to have you both on stream. Great to be able to sort of introduce you face to face, so to speak, for the first time. I'll say a couple of things to kind of set you both up here, and then we will probably be joined by Nance in any moment. Who, by the way, Me Panther in the chat said, Nance without a beard looks weird to me. The beard is badass. Well, yeah. Well, we'll be joined by Nance because this is a really exciting conversation where Nance and I are both about to purchase our tickets to come to Europe and to see you guys, as well as a bunch of other people who have collaborated with Theory Underground or who have supported us up until now. So for the audience who might not remember Michał Łukasz, he is in the Underground Theory volume. He's got an amazing piece on critical media theory, the commons, and what he thinks Theory Underground is doing or participating in. And I'll let him say a few words about that in his own introduction. But he also has his own channel in Poland. He is a graduate student there in Katowice. He also was a tour guide for Anne and I when we visited. And so he and his partner, Caroline, were wonderful hosts and guides for us. And so we're very excited to return to Katowice and to visit them. And he has been involved with Theory Underground since before it was called Theory Underground. He has been following for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's been a journey, and it's been a wonderful one at that. So then we have Łukasz. Great to have you, man. Łukasz has been, I've not met Łukasz in person, but he has been a part of the critical media theory research cohort. And so in that sense, we've spent plenty of time together virtually. And so I guess in that order, then I will have Michał say some more about what you're up to in terms of your research and the piece that you published in Underground Theory. And then we'll bring it over to you, Łukasz, and we'll get into what you're doing over there in Krakow. And while you both talk, I will be right back. I got to go get my coffee. It just finished pouring.
Okay. Yeah, coffee is a very important thing for some people. So, hi, my name is Michał, and I'm a PhD student in communication and media studies. And what I'm currently, at least for my, doctorate, what I'm interested in is political economy of anarchist media, mostly in Poland. And I'm studying them, empirically. I just want to understand how do they survive within the realm of capitalist society. How do they organize, production and exchange of the cultural symbolic goods they're producing and consuming and so on. And that's also connected to what I wrote in my chapter in Underground Theory. I tried to, take the same theoretical framework of autonomist Marxism mostly. And I just, tried to analyze the phenomenon of theory underground using it. And we could also discuss that later, because you made some points in the introduction to the book, which I would like to, answer. Maybe that's a good occasion today. But yeah, that's basically all about me.
Called out. Yeah. We'll give you an opportunity to respond to those here on stream. And then obviously you'll have the opportunity at both of the events in Krakow and Katowice. But really quick, I just wanted to say, I don't need coffee. I don't. In my defense, there's no reason to have to defend it, but I also want you all to know that this operation is not powered by caffeine. It is powered by drive alone, willpower and drive. That's it. The coffee is decaffeinated. So fucking,
Sure, man.
No, it really is.
Mic drop. No.
I stopped drinking caffeinated coffee last May, I think. But it was because Anne was like, she thought it was messing me up in some way, health-wise. And so I decided, I was like, well, I'll just do decaffeinated. I was like, it doesn't make a difference anyway. And she was like, yeah, it does. And then I was like, no, it doesn't. And then so I've been on decaffeinated ever since. So when I do these 10-hour streams or like these 12-hour streams, sometimes I've done 14-hour streams. I just have to say, yeah, decaffeinated. But Łukasz, how's it going, man? Yeah, how would you like to introduce yourself then?
Hi everyone. I cannot say that about myself, that I'm powered only by drive, because today I woke up, drink an energy drink, and went to psychoanalysis, and now I'm here. I'm a student right now. I'm doing my majors this year, and I was very stoked for Alenka's talk, because I'm writing actually about Mari Ruti's work on sublimation, and I'm connecting the concept of sublimation, contrasting it with transgression, and like two kinds of enjoyments you can get from these two. And right now my research started when I went to uni with Marx mainly, and like I read a lot about Marxism, but like 3 years ago I got into Lacan, like partly because of the course Dave was doing with Mikey. I looked at it, I was like, Lacan, that's dumb, and then I'm here writing a major. I'm also participating in Krakow Lacanian Society, trying to become an analyst. And so, yeah. Also, I'm organizing 2 students group, one on psychoanalysis. Right now, this beautiful translation of what is sex.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And also one on Hegel. So that's what I'm doing right now. Yeah.
I mean, can I ask Łukasz a question? Like, are you attending those meetings in the Krakow Lacanian circle? Is that the thing?
Yeah, the new Lacanian school, Krakowska.
Yeah, so we have the same background when it comes to Lacan, because I used to attend like for 2 years those same meetings. Well, I didn't want to become a psychoanalyst, but yeah, that's some pretty hardcore stuff happening in there.
Yeah, I expected it to be more of a sect, so I was actually like pleasantly surprised that it's not.
It is kind of.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I know. I mean, I guess like it's split within, like, yeah.
So I was just, I had said something, but my microphone, it was muted. I was asking a clarifying question about that book. So what is sex? Is that a brand new translation? It's just came out recently?
No, it's not brand new. It's from I don't know, from a few years ago. From 3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But
relatively.
yeah.
Okay.
For me, in my brain, it's still brand new.
Yeah, it is, because it's still 2020, basically. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
The true end of history was 2020, right?
Yeah.
So what is sex? I think the reason I had that idea that it was brand new was because I think Michał might have said something along those lines in one of our personal conversations. We have a lot of back and forth through voice messaging. But I want to ask you both kind of about the intellectual scene in Poland, about the political scene in Poland, how those two things are related, how you two are related to those two things, and how your respective cities are related to those two things. I know that's a really, really big set of questions, but I think it kind of sets up us. We can kind of do with it what we like. You can ask me questions. We can all talk about all kinds of things. But I do feel like, yeah, the standard American probably couldn't point Poland out on a map. And, you know, if they could they find Krakow? They definitely wouldn't know where Katowice is, right? And so, you know, in that sense, we'll start with the one that's most marginalized in this case. You could say a few things then, maybe, Michał, about Katowice and the intellectual and political scene there.
Well, there's nothing much to say about Katowice in that respect. I'm not just saying that, you know, to be overly modest, something like that. It's really a serious problem, one that we're trying to conceptualize in our, you know, Marxist or critical theory circles, that there are, you know, plenty of these universities in Poland which have people who are trying to do some interesting stuff, but they're like institutionally marginalized. And Katowice is one of those examples. You've been there, Dave. It's a pretty like densely populated place. It's a so-called conurbation. It's built of, you know, few different cities who are just tightly connected together. And we have pretty, you know, great people, lovely people at our universities in social studies, in humanities, whatever you want. But still, if you want to do something more serious, like to have a debate, to make a nice conference or something, you usually have to go to either Krakow or Warsaw or Poznan, whatever else. And it's the same with politics. Like it's also a bit complicated to explain my political background, because I've like grew up intellectually both in the Marxist tradition, you know, Frankfurt School, and anarchist tradition on the other hand. And what really got me like seriously into politics, also like almost physically, was our local anarchists in Katowice, or, you know, wider in the Silesia region, organizing something like, you know, every year in Katowice we have this economical congress, European Economical Congress, and every year anarchists are organizing their anti-congress. So in 2015, it got so hardcore that they had like anti-terrorists in there, chasing those anarchists. She was crazy. And it was for the first time I've seen personally, people representing, a relatively small group politically, but they were so into it. They were so like devoted that they could like risk, being jailed or something. And it was the first time when I felt, political theory touching me almost physically. And I've decided I want to follow, that. I want to understand that. And that's how I got into politics. And it was the last time in Katowice where shit like that happened. And now it's a pretty dead place, I'd say. I'm not, if you want to ask me about like parliamentary politics, parties, and so on, I don't care that much about it, so I'm not the best source. But when it comes to, labor unions, anarchism, anarcho-syndicalists, or post-left anarchists in Poland, maybe I'm your guy here. But yeah, that's how it looks.
Did you say post-left?
Yeah, it's pretty popular in Poland, among anarchists at least.
Yeah, I was curious about that because I think you've, in our personal conversations, you've referenced it before, but I think it has a bit of a different meaning there, right? I think in the US, it's basically just populism, right? I don't think it's so much anarchism.
Would you that meaning? Okay.
I'm not so sure. I feel conflicted about the category because whenever I've tried to research it, I really can't get to the bottom of it. And I feel like if it has a real history in Europe, and then when I look into it in the US, all people can point me to is like a couple of podcasters who are just kind of burnt out Marxists or Bernie bros, then I think we should go with the European, And so really quick then, what is that in Europe? How would you characterize post-leftism in Poland, at least?
I'd say it's a kind of a platform, a kind of a mixture. That's what you said about like burnt out Marxists, maybe, but it's mostly composed of anarchists who, well, they take a lot from this, traditional Marxist leftist orientation, finance, and but at the same time they're trying to cut themselves off from this traditionally like collectivist or anarcho-communist traditions of anarchism. In Poland, it has its specific flavor because for a lot of time the biggest, anarchist, like Anarchist Federation of Poland, and most of the squads and most of the anarchist milieu was this. I don't want to offend anyone, but they're like still LARPing, like if it was 19th century and Bakunin and Kropotkin were still around. So now the younger generation, and I mean younger even than me, teenagers, they're trying to find something new. So they read things like Bob Black or For Ourselves Collective, or all those publications from Ill Will or anything like that. It's a complete mixture. It's like anti-work, autonomism, a little bit of nihilism and insurrectionism. It's basically we're trying to, they're trying to distance themselves from, focusing mostly on Marxist categories, of being a working class, exploring a bit, going back to Stirner maybe, and trying to find some synthesis or some creative tension in between the class analysis and collective perspective and the egoistic and individual perspective. And it gets into very interesting places. First of all, it tries to work through the problems and the dead ends of working in collectives in bigger issues. Yeah, it's basically that, and it's also, I'd say, as you know, a media scholar, that's been a lot of it's been influenced a lot by, you know, the social media world we're living in, because the communication gets more individualized now, and you can organize small virtual collaborations and so on. So there's more to that I could describe, you know, like even in 15 minutes, but I think it's worth checking out wherever you come from politically.
Cool. I just realized that my follow-up question to that I should probably set on the side for now so we can bring it back to Łukasz. But by the way, Nance, welcome to the stream.
Hola.
Yo, Nance.
So yeah, the two of us are...
Sorry?
Yeah, the political situation, the intellectual situation, Krakow. Yeah.
The intellectual one is, I agree with Michał that, you know what happens? You can find a lot of, if you search, you can find a lot of great papers on philosophy. But for example, I have here, it's a book. It's on the Ljubljana School by a guy.
Yeah, I wanted to mention it myself.
It's great. It's a great one. And the guy actually has lectures in Łódź Film School, in a film university. And you can find a lot of those great papers from Lublin, from Uniwersytet Śląski in Katowice. I found a lot of great stuff published. And in Krakow there is, but it's like, I would say, I don't know if fringe is a good word, but it's not like we have like a Ljubljana school, like a big, like many people working together. You usually find like few people in each city doing great stuff. And for example, on my university and in Krakow and Warsaw, you have a lot of analytical philosophy. It's basically mostly analytical philosophy is what is being done. You have continentals who are doing like existentialism, but basically the feeling is that theory is dead, in the sense that what they are doing is like revisiting old stuff from 200 years and it's like historical, you know, it was back then, we are only making more and more papers about it. And I think that right now, like students like me and my friends, what we are trying to do is like organize precisely some stuff outside of university. For example, we have students meetings, like people from my uni, and we are doing it kind of outside sometimes we invite people to talk, professors, people from other cities, but it's not like, we don't get money like from the university. It's not like, it's not supported in any way. And yeah, so it's that. But and politically, I don't know if I should switch right away, but politically situation in Poland is like, for the last 8 years, we had basically the right-wing party, Prawo i Sprawiedliwość, Law and Justice Party, a great name, was ruling Poland, and we had a lot of like political regression. Like, for example, the way I practically got into politics was when abortion laws were restricted in Poland a few years ago. It was loud events, women's protests for a few years, and we organized protests with like local people, like anarchists, but also liberals, and we're doing active protests, like and that's so I interacted with a lot of people who maybe not theoretically, but practically were involved in politics. And what I found out is either you get liberals for whom like the end goal of politics is basically returning to 2012 in Poland, which was like not a great time, but yeah. Or on the left, you get those precisely like LARPers who think that it's 1923, that we should like, the only thing we should do is take the means of production from the state. You know, it's like, yeah. So it's complicated. Right now, we have a big commotion in the country because actually liberals took over again, and we'll see what happens. But like, yeah.
Yeah, I would like follow up to what you said, Łukasz. first of all, the book that you showed, it would roughly translate to English as non-all, that Lacanian term. And it was written by Kuba Mikurda, a Polish film scholar. So he's not, like straight, I don't know, philosopher or psychoanalyst or whatever. But it's like one of the few, like in the global perspective, one of the few monographs about the Ljubljana school. And it's such a shame that it hasn't been translated into English or anything a bit more international, because the guy actually went to Ljubljana and he done interviews with Žižek, with Dolar, with Zupančič. And so there is some, historical, biographical background to that. And he also explains how do they, remix Lacan with Hegel and so on. So you see, there are some people like hidden gems in Poland who are doing great research, but it's hard to export that because of the language barrier. Because people have to make a living. So before you write anything in English, you have to calculate. Like, for example, I'm pushed a lot as a PhD student to write in English, but at the same time, every time I think like, so what the hell am I going to read with my students? Like, I cannot assume they all speak English, and it's all that kind of a peripheral neo-colonial problems we have in Poland. And when it comes to politics, I very often abbreviated saying that in Poland you either get conservative liberals or liberal conservatives. And it's all about, securing the neoliberal capitalist order after the fall of, socialism and Berlin Wall and everything. So yeah, it's now we have a more liberal government, which promised a lot of to uplift the ban on abortion, to be less harsh with LGBT people, but they're not really doing any of that, and they're just screwing us economically even more. So it's interesting. It's interesting to live in Poland.
Definitely.
Nance, you were here for the Alenka conversation, as were Michał and Łukasz, and so I want to let everyone maybe say a few things about that, and then we'll kind of get into the events that we are planning in Krakow and Katowice, as well as say some more general things about the European tour before we close out. We've got about a half hour to do this. And, but I wanted to, let's just kind of, so here we are. Nance, you're officially in. I'm sorry I didn't send you the link. I thought I did. I sent it to everybody but you. Yeah, do you have any thoughts on that conversation or anything that's happened here up until now? Really, I kind of want to just give you the floor.
No, I think I really like Alenka Zupančič a lot, but she's also, for whatever reason, kind of just in general confusing sometimes for me. I know I like what she's done with Catherine Malibu and Julie Resch, and that I like that a lot. But I don't know, the sex stuff, it's confusing for me because I am just kind of like disinterested in all that. But she does find a way to make it interesting. Yeah, I don't know. And then like in general, talking about Poland, I think like from my very American point of view, I don't know. It seems like things are like outdated and maybe kind of stuck in a Cold War mentality a little bit, but I don't know. I'm definitely interested. And also I really like the whole post-left stuff. I like kind of like egoism, right? I kind of like Stirner. So I don't know, maybe when we go over there, we'll catch some interesting vibes. I don't know.
Yeah, I really want to read Bob Black now. You reminded me of him. I've got some of his stuff downloaded. I just never actually got into it, but Michał just reminded me of it. Me Panther in the chat says sex is confusing for everyone, Nance. You know what that did for me? What that did for me, that conversation, I think it really drove home a couple of things, and that is that for Alenka, that when we talk about drive, we really are talking about something that happens after law, that happens after prohibition, that happens once a creature is domesticated into this thing called humanity. And the it's sort of the precursors for that is in this sort of bundle of drives the baby has, but those are more related to need. But then, of course, the baby still will like drink more milk than it needs, right? And then it will throw up. It's like, so there is already something going on there. But she did make this distinction between like at the most infantile stage, it's really just there's something driving that baby, but it's not this thing we're referring to as drive. And I found that very useful. And then also that the sublimation and repression is not something that she abandons. And in fact, instead of going, oh yes, well, here's the standard account, and now I'm going to tell you all about Lacan and why it's so important, she instead goes, actually, you know what? Everyone just needs to read Freud. You know, just actually read Freud. And that's a really good starting point. I found that really clarifying. And so, yeah, I don't know. It is really confusing to me as well, though. And I think one of the main things, I guess the final thing I want to say about that whole conversation was that when Nina Power was on and she was in the public call, and I believe Nick Castellucci of the Vanishing Mediators said that, something about sex from What is Sex? And then Nina was like, yes, but that's a fantastic book, but that's dealing with sexuality. It's not dealing with sexuation. And I was like, oh, damn. Because when I read it, I was kind of just thinking it's supposed to be all of those things. But after that conversation and what little I've gone back over in the book, I'm like, I think that's right. I don't think she's dealing with sexuation really at all. And so when she critiques Judith Butler, she says she takes the sex out of gender. She means the sexuality out of gender, not the, say, biological sex or whatever. And so I found that fascinating. And so now I wonder if you guys have anything you want to piggyback off of with all of that, especially since you have like this crazy, you're almost like brothers in some kind of like fraternity you didn't know. Like it's obviously not a fraternity, but it's like this psychoanalytic group in Krakow. Like Michał went for years, and now Łukasz is doing that. I wonder how anything you all might want to say in relation to the Alenka interview.
Listen, like, well, I think that what's so precious about Alenka and this book in particular, What is Sex, is that she gathers so much material into it that basically, like, yeah, it's great to go and read Freud, and Lacan and other like Žižek and stuff, but I think this book is like so dense and condenses so many concepts. Like I was reading about drive for the last 2 months, and when I opened What is Sex again and read about her take on the death drive, I was like, this is not anywhere. Like it's brand new, but somehow it all fits. It fits all of those other like texts together, and like even in the course which was done on Theory Underground and Philosophy Portal on What is Sex, what was so interesting to me when Kadel was teaching it with Dave is that there were those points at which it was like, yeah, I don't know. Like there is a point at which you have to wonder, like, there is no answer to this question she poses. There is no, and I think this is like, it's precious that a thinker like Alenka can just bring you to a point at which you are not like, oh, I should read more. I should read more. That's why I don't have the answer for this question. It's like, no, this question literally does not yet have an answer, and I should go and read. So maybe I can contribute a little bit to that theory. And also it's about sex, okay, sexuality. I think it's also a little bit about sexuation. I don't know if I agree with, but like it's about politics also, and that's what's so precious to me. That like I wonder about after the talk Leon Brenner had on the channel, that he said that psychoanalytic concepts are strictly related to the clinic and should not be applied outside of it. Okay, but like that may be true, but also when she talks about sexuation and how Žižek talks about sex in general, like connecting it to political topics, I just can't help but like think that I start seeing it in like when I watch media, when I analyze certain situations, those concepts which are so abstract start coming into your analysis of like everyday political situation, or like not everyday, but like, and she also does this in the book. So yeah, but it's hard stuff, and it's frustrating to read. But I think that's because of the nature of the topic and not the way she writes.
I think that what you just said about the connection between practicing psychoanalysis and theorizing about using psychoanalysis in a philosophical milieu is a very important problem, I would say, even because like my serious adventure with philosophy started with Žižek, because I have some my own critiques of Žižek, and I do not really agree with like 100% with him, but still he's like hell of an important thinker. Even if you do not respect what he says personally, he's just like a crossroad, like a guide on the crossroads between Marx, Hegel, and Lacan. And they are so dense and important and complex by themselves. And there's this guy from Slovenia, a country that like 10, 20 years ago we wouldn't even think about, if not for Žižek and the Ljubljana school. And I think we should probably problematize more. And I was so happy that you had this topic in your stream about psychoanalysis terms, working only in the context of an actual curation and so on. And that's what I called this Lacanian circle in Krakow being hardcore, because you go there not only to study Lacanian seminars together and discuss the text, but you have like regular psychoanalysts who are exchanging examples from the cases that they're analyzing. And you feel almost a bit embarrassed because you're listening about very intimate things, but it's so important. It's so valuable. But when I ask them, like, what are your takes on Žižek, and do you even read that? And I remember like the head of this Lacanian circle in Krakow, she was like, oh, you mean those guys from Ljubljana? They're still working on that Lacan stuff. They're alive. So, it's like, at least in Poland, many people got into Lacan because of Žižek. And we have like plenty of Žižek translated. And Žižek even wrote for some, magazines and newspapers in Poland. And he got people in Poland interested with Lacan. But the OG Lacanians are now like, so now you're interested with Lacan. Like what the hell, it's too late. We've already gone into different, places than the Slovenian guys do. And so there is what I'm pointing at with what I want to say is just there is a great gap in between the Lacanian practice and what is being popularized and tackled by Žižek and his colleagues. And there's a lot of work to be done in between, because I would still agree that it's hard to actually get what, you know, Lacan is about without getting at least a, you know, superficial grasp on what is done on the psychoanalytical couch, you know.
You know, they are, I think that maybe they are split, dude. Like, because when I talk with some of them, they are old, and the Lacanians in Europe, I don't know how the situation is in other countries, but they are old, and they will, if they don't take in new people, they will probably end in like 20, 30 years. And
Yeah, they're boomers. They're boomers, basically.
They are boomers, really.
Both
but
like literally
Yeah.
and ideologically.
Yeah, exactly. There was a conference last year they organized, and they had a section for like LGBT questions, and it was called like gender.
Jesus Christ, that was...
Yeah, but I asked them about it, and you know what's funny? And actually, I received the mail. They are trying to recruit new young people, and it's not done in this bad way. Like, yeah, come on, young people, we will ideologize you. But actually, I came in and I was like, talked with some of them, and I was like, they cannot do this stuff with Žižek anymore. They cannot dismiss him, and now it's like either they hate him or they are like, no, he has a wrong interpretation. And I found it in so many Lacanians here, even in professors on uni, they are doing Lacan, and if you mention like Ljubljana stuff, first they will dismiss it like you are under influence of a bad spirit, and then they will accept it slowly but say that it's a misinterpretation. And it's so funny because on the one hand, Lacanians will tend to like treat philosophy as like, oh no, we know what is philosophy, it's boring, you know, we don't have to do it. But if you mention Žižek, they are like, and you like start mentioning his concepts and how he deals with it, they don't dismiss it like, oh no, it's stupid. They are like, no, this is wrong. And it's, I don't know. But I think the situation is
it's like affirmation through negation. At least they're treating the Slovene Lacanian school seriously, either as a threat to you know the status quo or something. But yeah, I agree. That's we can see. It's funny that we can see like year after year it evolving, because they have to respond to popularity of Žižek, because now Žižek is the ambassador of Lacan, like worldwide. You know, Lacan cannot speak anymore for himself, and like you know this NLS, New Lacanian School, and all of that other organizations. They're like, for regular people who are interested in philosophy, like, for example, you, Dave, or you, Nance, can you name any French or Spanish or Argentinian schools of Lacan, you know, those OG psychoanalysts who seem to, you know, carry the weight of the burden of the Lacanian heritage, you know, which was passed on by Jacques-Alain Miller. No, like it's underground for us. So everybody reads Žižek and Zupančič now, and they have to respond to that in some way.
That is, I think, a gift and a curse, you know, in a lot of ways. And so, you know, it's becoming more and more of a problem, I think, for me. Now, I think the Vanishing Mediators, you know, Nick and Andrew, they are the half of the young Žižekians that is most, I think, on like a weekly basis in dialogue with a lot of Lacanians, bringing them on their channel, reading the seminars, page to page, all the way through. I think they're finishing out seminar 3 right now. And like they just had, you know, Chiesa on their channel recently. You know, he's a big deal nowadays. Wrote an amazing book on Lacanian subjectivity, has certain disagreements with Žižek. And of course, you know, they've brought on Leon Brenner, who I have had on recently. And I just put up a video of Leon problematizing the application of the technical terms in psychoanalysis outside of the clinic, because he's saying these are not ontological categories. And then I think the obvious comeback, and I will just cite Mikey, who is in the chat. What's up, Mikey? Mikey's in the chat. For someone like Mikey or Todd McGowan, that doesn't mean that the subject's not split, though. The subject is ontologically split. I don't care if that concept comes out of a practical clinical scenario. The subject's still split. Do we need to somehow get some scientists with some lab coats to prove it? I don't think it needs to be proven, right? Like, the subject is split. Like, that's a good operating assumption when thinking ontologically, right?
Yeah,
I can see you have.
Cut in for a second. The split subject is pretty easy to, relatively easy to explain to philosophers, sociologists, whoever else. It's so, self-explanatory. And there are many, traditions like existentialism or dialectical tradition who can go on with that. But you have more nuanced things. Which will sound different, will work different in different contexts. And when you take it, into the wild, into context of, I don't know, for example, my media studies, or some context of, I don't know, class struggle, whatever, without having it being mediated through the context of original Lacanian therapy. Therapy in the wider sense, you may get lost, you may misinterpret it, and that's what I'm afraid of here.
And that is why I said this is becoming more of a problem for me, is because I think that the goal should always be to kind of deconstruct our usages, and not to say leave them deconstructed, but to hold open the space of the question of the interpretation of any of these concepts that we're mobilizing, especially when we're doing, say, ontology. Now, we don't have much more time, and I want to give everyone a chance to say something else before we close out. And we still have to say something about the event, which has been deferred at this point. But Michał, I had forgotten, you had said that you wanted to respond to my to what I said in the introduction. So I'll read the piece here in Underground Theory. It's from the introduction. I say, "The thing is, I owe a tremendous debt to all of those who have courageously attempted to do something different. In the same way that I see things that I want to correct for, there will be people like Michał Ramsbugowski in this book who will have critiques of how centralized Theory Underground is." I mean, it's not just in this book, right? This is just a common kind of thing that people might say, which is why I started saying the Theory Underground is a fiefdom. It's my little fiefdom. That's just the way it is. It's because I'm just trying to own this fact, right? But I said, I guess this just comes down to a difference in perspective, because I don't think small media projects are effective when decentralized. For instance, those who have tried to unionize, collectivize, or democratize current affairs, or TYT, the Young Turks, or even a small business like Mina's World, or a pizza shop in downtown Boise, completely miss that such singular entities built around individual personalities and their networks would exist in any ideal society. The point is not to let them rule the world, of course, but if people don't have the freedom to do what they want on an expanded scale, then it wouldn't be a society worth living in. Yet decentralization is upheld as a supreme value. I just do not think of them as effective or fun. So
first of all, and I guess it's my fault that I didn't express myself well enough in my text. But your critique went totally in a different direction that I actually wanted to make the thinking grow. Because what I'm criticizing is not like centralization of power and you being, the king of the Theory Underground project. It was rather a critique of material conditions, working conditions. And what I was afraid of in this analysis is that you basically can just burn out because of having all that burden on your shoulders only, and that's all. It's about sharing the workforce, sharing responsibilities, just to not being left alone with everything. That's all. That's like purely organizational material issue.
Well, I'm glad you got a chance to respond. I think maybe in Katowice, maybe or maybe in a future volume, one of the ones to come out of the October conference this year, I'll have to do a piece on why you're right and why my interpretation of your critique was wrong. My response applies to those people who are saying it in that other way, but no, you're 100% right. It is not sustainable in a sort of sense, and that's why I am trying to get things to a point where I would be able to pay a fair amount of money to programmers to actually make the website and the app function, because right now it's like barely functioning. And it's kind of just like, wow, after all of that work I put into it, it still just demands so much time and energy, and then it's not really working for people. Like, it kind of works. Like, people can get the app and they can still use it. Some people do prefer the app over the mobile site, or I mean the desktop site. But at the end of the day, some degree of specialization and division of labor really is necessary. We have to be realists about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well then, okay. I probably shouldn't talk about that at the event in Katowice, because the theme of the event at Katowice, well, there will be a theme. All right. And so I wanted to kind of let you each talk about your vision and sort of ideas you might have for the events in Katowice and Krakow. And then in the closing, Nance and I, we might say a couple things about what we will want to talk about when we're there, if we have time. But right now, I really want to give the floor to you both. And so we'll go Łukasz and then Michał. I'm going to pull up the dates that I have for this. And but if you know it off the top of your head, you can also share that out. But yeah, so Łukasz, what do you have in mind for this so far?
What I would like to talk about would be like there is a real deadlock in the left politics in Poland, and I would like to talk about maybe some way to I'm really inspired by Todd McGowan's enjoyment left and right, and I would like to present a piece which would be connected with it, like analyzing the way in which left, which maybe exists, maybe doesn't exist in Poland, works, and like to present a piece about that. But I don't know about the general theme. I have to think about it. Yeah. And I also wondered how we'll probably, and I thought about it right now, like we'll probably be presenting in English, but I don't know if we'll also be presenting in Polish. Because in Poland, people generally, like 90% of people in the cities at least speak English, but I wouldn't like to assume that. So we'll think about this, I think.
That's a really good point.
I've assumed that on our part in Katowice, when I was discussing, technicalities with people at my institute, and yeah, there's one thing that may be interesting for our viewers that I was discussing with you, Dave, with you, Łukasz, that the Krakow event will be more like unofficial, casual, because it will be organized in a cooperative milieu. There might be some, anarchists, some horizontal structures. So, to make it to make an interesting contrast, I wanted to organize the Katowice part on a more official level. So I've asked for help at my institute at University of Silesia in Katowice, because I work in Institute of Journalism and Media Communication, and I've said, we have some critical media theory stuff. Are you interested in that? And yeah, of course you have, but you have to organize everything by yourself. Good, better for us. They're not going to stick their fingers into a theory underground machine. And I said that it will be mostly aimed at students, and they were like, so you do not want to invite us? Why not? We want to take part in a discussion. We want to discover that that fresh thing from States. So it might be very interesting. And when it comes to my part, if of course there will be time and space for me talking there, I would just like to present some points from my underground theory chapter with some additional thoughts and also empirical data that I have already gathered by all this time. So yeah.
So it's going to be more critical media theory in Katowice. And it sounds like it could be either a mixture of things in Krakow, or it could be more focused on, you were saying you want to present on something having to do with politics. And so, I mean, we could do something just on post-leftism.
We could. Yeah, I also wanted to... I don't want to, what Michał said about it being not connected with the uni per se. I want to get all possible help I can and invite all theory connected professors or doctors, which I know work with students already and are open to a discussion. And I also wanted to maybe invite some of my friends who are working on Heidegger or precisely on politics. I know people who are right when Theory Underground was doing the course on Nick Land, there was also a group in Krakow who were independently doing Nick Land studies. So that was very interesting. I think politics would be great. And
there's some zeitgeist in the air, the spirit of the times. People are independently reading same shit, all around the globe. But I want to make one important correction, because we're close to making an overstatement. When we're talking about post-left being popular in Poland, we're talking about it being popular among, youngsters. I mean, 20-ish and below. That's what is
Zoomers.
Yeah, that's what's hip with the kids right now. It's not on every corner of every Polish street there are regular working class people reading some post-left stuff or Stirner and anything like that. In Poland it's the same as everywhere. Most of the people are not even interested in politics as a theory. But in Poland, and Dave was already exposed to that, we love nagging, we love complaining, especially about politics. So there is something to start with, but it's still not philosophy per se.
Well, and that would be the goal then for me, would be to draw the connection between philosophy per se, political philosophy per se, and I would probably read some Bob Black, and I would look into the podcasters in the US a little bit more, and I would draw this distinction, because ultimately what I want to flesh out is post-left versus post-politics versus anti-politics. And I want to talk about, are these all the same thing? Are they different? If they're different, how are they different? And then finally, most importantly, Brent Adkins is here. We're going to let him in a second, but we'll still finish out really quick. What are the connections between these things? And then, are these new identities for people to assume, or are they methodological modes of operation? And so that's the big question. Actually, we gotta close out. I didn't realize we'd lost time here. So, guys, thank you so much. I hope that we can resume this maybe in a month, maybe on February 22nd. You'll both be welcome back. We can figure out a time. If this time works for you all, then we could do it then. But if that won't work, we'll figure out something else soon, because I would definitely want to bring you both back so we can keep talking about all of these things. Thank you, everybody.
Peace.
Thanks. Bye you.
We cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, where workers with earbuds can find genuine liberation from necessity.
Research at Theory Underground focuses on what is most important for understanding our current situation.
All right, everybody, whether you watched and or listened to this on YouTube or listened to this via podcast, I just wanted to say thank you for making it to the end. I hope you found this worthwhile. If you got distracted along the way, tuned in and out, no worries. At least now you kind of have a sense for the territory and what it's good for and whether or not it's worth coming back to in the future, which is ultimately what it's all about. And so just wanted to make a couple quick plugs here as far as ways that you can get involved at Theory Underground. So the main thing is that we have weekly events and we have monthly events, and then we have special courses. Now the special courses are like usually a one-off thing, right? It might be a short course, it might be a long course. Courses might include things like Mikey teaching Slavoj Žižek For They Don't Know What They Do, or Leon Brenner teaching clinical structures and autism and psychoanalysis, or me teaching Being in Time or Totality and Infinity. But I think one of the coolest ways to get involved, if you don't have the time and or money for a full-on course right now, is to check out the ongoing seminars. There are two that take place. One is on the second Sunday of every month. The other is on the fourth Sunday of every month. And then there's a sort of floating discussion that changes whether it's the first or the third or sometimes the fifth Sunday of a month. That's kind of just agreed upon depending on my availability and my wife's availability. So the two of us do these lecture sessions for critical media theory and critical doxology and time energy. Those two ongoing seminars are part of research cohorts for people who want to do writing on these topics, or people who might want to use critical media theory or critical doxology and time energy theory for their own projects. And so this is like a way to get a basis in these fields, but it's also a way to kind of get to know people who are really working on the main research threads here at Theory Underground. Subscribers also get access to the weekly events, which are Capital Mondays every Monday, variable times for that. Just if you are interested and you sign up as a subscriber, just reach out to me and I'll add you to that list. And then we also do these multilingualism immersion sessions where we on Wednesday do Club Espanol at 3 p.m. Eastern time. On Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern time, we are joined by Terrence Blake. And if you haven't watched the interview that we did with him, you got to check it out. He's a really cool guy. He's been speaking French and writing it and doing theory in French, studying under people like Deleuze and Foucault back in the day. And now here he is teaching us all French. So definitely check that out. And then Solitariat is health and fitness. This is where we just do a check-in. It's a quick 40-minute in and out. Once per week, we just talk about like what kinds of physical activities have we been doing? What kinds of diet choices are we making? And what's something we're going to try to do different this week? Like that kind of check-in. It's almost like, I feel like it's like a sort of secular confessional, but it does help me kind of stay on top of my game. It often inspires me to go on an extra run or go hit the gym, whatever, stuff like that. Stuff that thinkers need, right? American thinkers need multilingualism immersion. American thinkers need health and fitness because it's too easy for us to get just stuck in the reading and the writing and the scrolling on the phones and all of that kind of stuff, especially when we don't have the time energy, especially when we're constantly busy. Having some kind of a structure, accountability, some kind of a check-in, that really helps me. And that's why it's ultimately here, because I find it useful. Nance finds it useful. A handful of other people find it useful. And so if you want in, this is a great way to get to know us. But also every month we have other events that are just like these monthly events. These are just a few of the things that we're currently doing. There's a lot more coming. Right now, the app and the website are buggy and beta. And so don't trust them at all. The best way to know what's going on is to become a subscriber, hit me up, Like, let me know what you're most interested in, and we'll go from there. I guess the last thing I want to say is big thank you to my patrons over at Patreon. So the difference between a subscriber and a patron is the subscriber is giving me anywhere between $30 and $300 a month so that they can be involved in all of these activities.
Think of it like a gym membership, but for your mind.
If you don't care so much about the theory courses or the ongoing seminars or the multilingualism immersion events or the health and fitness or the film club stuff, if that none of that really matters to you, but you want to support, then the best way to do that is to become a patron. And so thank you. Big thank you to Nico and Zakil and Zoxandra and Darian Large. You're really helping make a difference here, because as of 2 weeks ago, I started skipping work at Amazon. Thank you. It really means the world to me that people are supporting me on Patreon, that people are monthly subscribers, that people maybe just want a one-off course, but ultimately, you're all the best. And if you're kind of like, hey, I can't do any of that stuff and I'm broke, motherfucker, well, don't worry. There is a scholarship if you want to get involved. But if you don't and you just like the content, then hit the like button, comment, let me know what you think about something that happened. What was your favorite quote from the whole live stream? What was something that somebody said that you thought was a great moment? Maybe timestamp it. I love that stuff. But if you're on the podcast, make sure to review the Theory Underground podcast. Thank you, everybody. Take care. All right, I know this is like already the longest PSA in the world, but there's a lot of stuff going on at Theory Underground. I just wanted to make this quick insertion to also remind you that there is the Theory Underground European Tour happening between April 27th and May 25th. The dates and locations are almost secured, and you can see them right here on the whiteboard, as well as the October conference happening in Boise. It's going to happen between the 24th and 26th, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. You can check out the call for proposals on that. Should be up on the channel now.